King Yorick is one of the last farmable characters that I was able to unlock. He starts off at a 2-star, and because of that, it takes 30 tokens to unlock him. So the 1-stars that you can unlock take 10 stars to take 10 tokens to unlock. 2 stars take 30 tokens, and 3 stars take 100 tokens. I only have one more character that I'm still farming to unlock, and that's Phenol, the green slime. So we can look at some of the places. He actually has fewer places to farm early on, so that alone makes it hard to get him, but then also you're working up towards 30, so it takes a little bit longer. So it'll be nice. You can watch this one and see what you're working towards. Let's look at his stats. He is water element, but you'll notice he's slow, undead, and a warrior. I've mentioned before, water element has a high number of tanks, so this is nice. I've got a warrior that's been built in here. His first trait is lifeless, so immune to poison and disease, and he's also magical. So sometimes they throw that up in the name, but they didn't for this one. You'll see that he has moderate attack, kind of medium defense, low skill, and decent medium health. You can see those resistances here again with the poison resist and disease resist. So as always, it's the abilities that make them interesting. Here's his basic attack, and more interestingly, this marked for death. So if you've made it to the second epic boss at this point, going towards the Lich, there's a middle of the stage mini boss, and one of the guys has this skill, this marked for death skill, and you'll notice at that time that you take massive damage from him. He'll mark you for death, mark one of your characters, and then proceed to do a massive amount of damage that next turn. And I believe it stays on for 2 or 3 turns. At least that's what happens with the guy that's on that Lich level and that in the middle of the Lich level. So presumably this one would do the same thing. Here you can see you can upgrade it, but the upgrade is very small in comparison to the starting out position. So on one hand, that's a good thing, because if you want to level this guy up, you don't really need to level up his skill as well, which at this point, obviously, I'd say the biggest thing holding back bringing your characters up to use them is the gold required to level up their skills. So this is a character you could potentially just use the experience potions, level him up, and then raise his basic attack, but leave marked for death at its current level. Even if you get it up to like level 40, which takes an enormous amount of gold, you're only going to increase this thing from 250% up to 290. In the scheme of things, that 250% is still a huge buff. So let's look at his Ascension. The next Ascension is this really nice buff to the team. So he's got a melee attack that's going to be a decent amount of damage, but also a buff to the entire team's defense, which is really helpful, especially if you end up going through and you can alternate these. A lot of times recently I've been taking, for any kind of fire level or something that I can't use my main team on, I've got a lot of nature people right now on my main team, so on a level like that I've been bringing in Yokozuna, and his Sumo Stomp, I can use that. It's got a 5-turn cooldown as well, and you can alternate that with Stout Team from Chief Nubnub. And in doing so, you can continually have a defense buff on your team, which really helps out the survivability. I mean, the big concern with campaign is usually taking 1 or more critical hits in the same turn to your weakest character. If you can maintain those defense buffs, you're a lot more survivable, and this just gives you another option. The place I would see him being used more than anything is in the campaign when doing bosses, and potentially specifically epic bosses that have a ton of life. If you can use this huge multiplier, and then potentially even have other multipliers in there. If you can put this up, so it's going to multiply the damage, then you can add a buff like Cruel King Bramble's Party Dance, his Goblin Party Dance, and really boost the attack on your side. I'm sure that it would come out with some massive damage on that boss. So as long as the boss isn't immune to this, and so far we haven't had a chance to try it out on the epic bosses, but otherwise nobody has anything on them. I looked at all the immunities on the Lich at the time, and there wasn't any mention of this, so potentially you could use this on a number of the epic bosses to do just massive damage. And that other benefit is that for epic bosses, there's a high chance that you're going to get really large hits, so having a defense buff or alternating defense buffs, so you've always got some defense buff for your team, would be really helpful as well. I don't see this guy being used as much for PvP, for dungeon raiding, either on the offensive or defensive side, and the primary reason is you don't have time to put a buff most of the time, especially not a single person buff here, a single person detriment on the other team. There's just, you'd have to do damage, you've got to get some characters taken out in those first couple turns, so I don't see him as much there, but definitely in campaign, and especially for those really hard bosses.